Welcome to Get Known, Be Seen WebTV. I'm your host, Trish Springsteen, and it's my absolute delight to have with me this morning, all the way from Norwich in UK, Rachel Wood, and it's extremely early for her. So welcome, Rachel. Thank you for getting up so early.
Hello. You might have a guest cat coming in and out now and again.
That's okay. I love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Awesome. So we're going to have a conversation with Rachel. And just before we do, let's find out a little bit more about Rachel. Now, Rachel is a poet and writer of children's stories. And she's got a poem that's been published in a book and a short story that's been published in a book. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. As I said, Rachel Wood lives in Norwich, UK with her cat, Artemis, who helps her write and obviously also helps her do interviews. So we'll be looking forward to Artemis being on as well. Rachel writes children's stories and poetry. She works in a health food store, but also runs a young adults group called The Bridge over Zoom. And we're going to talk a little bit about The Bridge. This supports people with mental health and other issues. Rachel has a mild disability herself, which hinders spatial awareness and balance. Rachel has characters in her books such as a dispraxic knight and vegan dragon. Can you imagine, people, a vegan dragon? How fascinating would that be? An elephant who sucks up the stars, and two wise donkeys who convey wisdom as they chat about life. She's a member of Norwich Writers Circle, a local writers group called the Mulberry Writers and London Writers Bureau. These all support her writing in different ways. Hi, Rachel. I just need to find out about your characters. How did you start writing? Let's just go back a little bit, maybe. What started you writing on for children's books to start with children's stories? What started you?
I don't know really. I've always loved writing. I've always loved writing poetry, and I don't know. I just feel most drawn to writing children's stories. I think there's genres that people enjoy and are drawn to, like crime or whatever, and mine is children's. So yeah. I do write other things. The story I got published isn't a children's story. But I think it's the genre that I'm most drawn to doing.
And it's not the easiest one to write, is it? Everybody seems to think, oh, children's stories would be really easy, but they're not. They're not. You've got to write from a different point.
No, that's right. And you have to aim it at a certain age group. And I did a course on picture books, which was great. This lovely lady, she published picture books and showed you how you put some pictures and words together and what made a good picture book and what didn't. And that was a great course. I really enjoyed that. So, but there's a lot to children's stories and getting the words right and the age group, and so I'm still working on it.
Awesome. And your poetry, is your poetry's for all sort? Is there a specific poetry style that you write, or is just whatever comes?
It tends to be whatever comes. The poem I got published is called Little Feet in Chroma, and it was about, I live near the coast, and it was about a firework display on the coast, which was amazing because you're in darkness and you could hear the sea coming in. And then this happens every year in New Year's Eve, so anyone in Norfolk knows all about it, but I'm new to Norfolk, so I'd never seen this, and it was just such an atmospheric thing that I was drawn to write about it. And sometimes I don't know whether my stories are poems or stories, because I think I have a bit of a poetic style. I just like the feel of words and the way they rhyme, and so they kind of mold into each other.
And some children's stories are almost like story poems, the way
they are. And I think they're really hard to write. When I read those, I think, gosh, that's a challenge, that one. Yeah, totally.
So share a little bit. I just want to know this dispraxic knight and vegan dragon. How do you
Yeah.
get your characters out in your stories, and
Oh, I
what
did.
do they come from?
Well, I mean, it's partly based on me because I guess my disability is a bit like dyspraxia, which means that I can be a bit clumsy, and I can my spatial awareness is not that great and my balance isn't that good. And so I get a bit frustrated at times. And so the dragon is vegan, because I thought, well, she's going to be a friendly dragon. And the idea of the story is that the knight has this disability called dyspraxia, and he's a bit frustrated because he wants to be the best knight in the world, and then suddenly there's a competition, and he thinks, well, I'm going to win this competition and I'm going to go and fight the dragon, this scary dragon. So they all think it's a scary dragon. But in fact, he just is so clumsy, he never gets anywhere. He falls off his horse and loses his glasses and does all sorts of daft stuff. And his helper is trying to help him, but it still doesn't get anywhere. And he's so stubborn, and he doesn't like asking for any help, which doesn't help at all. And that is definitely based on me. So then he climbs up this mountain, he's really cross with himself because he's fallen over and done all sorts of daft stuff, and then walks up this mountain and he meets a dragon, and he's really scared because he thinks she's going to eat him, but she's vegan, so she says, no, I'm not going to eat you. And his helper, and he's got this little donkey that he rides on, so his helper comes up that's right, yeah. So near the dragon's cave is a bridge, and he's walking along this bridge, but the dragon keeps blowing a fire and burning holes in it, and so he sort of almost falls down this hole because he's a bit clumsy. So the dragon comes in and flies under and rescues him, and suddenly he finds himself lying on the top of this dragon, and he thinks, oh no, this is going to eat me. Oh no, what we're going to do? And then they come down onto her, near her cave, and he's really scared. And then his helper comes up on the donkey, bringing this sword, and says, oh, you can kill the dragon now. And the dragon goes, oh no, why would you want to kill me? I'm not going to eat you, I'm vegan. So in the end, they make friends, and also sort of quite a lot of healing takes place. So I mean, the dragon's quite lonely, so he makes friends with the knight. And the dragon tells the knight that actually, if you need help, it's good to ask for help, and it's like giving a gift to someone. So if I asked you for some help, it would be like giving you a gift. So you've got the choice whether you could help me or not.
Awesome.
So I learned that in my life. So I guess one of the things about my stories, or some of them at least, is that they tend to have a bit of a bit of wisdom hidden in there somewhere along the way.
Oh, lovely.
So the dragon tells him that, and then the dragon helps him with some healing, and so he sends some healing out, and all these sort of pink circles come drifting down over the night and roll out all of his frustrations. And then he realizes, oh, I don't want to be a knight at all, and he ends up being a baker. And they go back and they make vegan pancakes, and the dragon makes the fire every morning so that they can cook vegan pancakes. And that's the basic idea.
Story. Awesome. How close are you to being able to get that published? What are you looking at with your stories? To put them out yourself or to put them into other books?
Well, yeah, I've been thinking about doing it myself. As I've joined this London Writers Bureau, and that's quite a big writers group that met online about a year ago since COVID. And there's a lot of people there, so sort of, I don't know how many people are involved, like 500, 600 people, something like that. So I'm hoping I might be able to get a bit of advice from them as to how to go forward. But also with my Mulberry writers, so what they do is they support me by reading some of the things that I write, and giving me some feedback. And I think feedback's really important. So you have to be able to listen to what people have got to say and make changes. So one of the things I might need is an editor, so that they look at it and give me some positive criticism, and then I can make changes. So I'm just looking at maybe finding an editor and looking at publishing. I'm wondering about self-publishing, so you could either self-publish on Amazon or something like this, or go to a publisher myself.
How many stories have you got so far?
So there's that. There's the elephant that sucks up the stars. He thinks it's a good idea. He gets really cross with the stars because they're giggly and they disturb him. He can't sleep, so he decides he's going to suck up the stars. And his friend is also an elephant, and he asks her to help. So they sit there and suck all the stars out of the sky. But then he finds that they're quite tickly and jiggly in his tummy, and then he can't see where he's going. So he thinks maybe this wasn't a good idea. So I think that's for younger children, really. So that's that one. And then that Ada and Idris, two wise donkeys. Now they came along more recently during COVID, and sometimes they're a poem and sometimes they're a story, but basically Ada usually has a bit of an issue, and she goes to Idris and says, oh, I don't know about this, how am I going to do this? And Idris comes along and gives an answer to it. So for instance, during COVID, I found it really difficult at work and just in life generally, because people are so anxious. And there's a part of me that just thinks, well, but I'm still happy and I'm still having a good time. And sometimes it's difficult, but so I think that, so I've got this story called Ada and the Two Worlds. So Ada comes along and says, Idris, I'm really, I don't know, it's upsetting because there's all these people that are really worried. And he says, well, what you can do is you can imagine that there's two worlds, and there's one world where everyone's stressed and worried and not very happy. So all you do is just make a choice and close that door, and then walk back into your own world, which is a field, a donkey field.
Yeah.
And enjoy doing the things that you like doing, like eating grass and carrots and talking to me and talking to people that go past and drinking water. And they tend to be really sort of fairly simple ideas.
Awesome.
But yeah.
But each of them's got a teaching point for the kids, and not just for the children, actually. From what you've been saying, all those little stories that you've been sharing are good for people who are just trying to start their own business or start their own book or start writing. They have they've got little bits of pearls of wisdom that can be applied for any of the things that they're wanting to start out doing. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
How long have you been writing for? I mean, all your life?
Since I was little, I've just always loved writing stories. Yeah. I've still got a book from school, I think, with all my stories in.
And the story that you did in the book called Spooks, what was that about?
Oh, so that is, so in Norwich is a really old city. And where I run my little group called it's called the Kinder Cafe. And underneath there, there's something called the Undercroft. So if you go down, it's quite a tall building, and you go down some steps into the cellar. and there's a really ancient street down there. But first of all, you go down one set of steps, and there is a weaver's room. And because there was one of the main ways of making money was weaving, and people would do it in their houses in these little streets.
Wow.
And so that was there. It's like a 17th century weaver's room. And then you go down again lower, and there's a really ancient street. So this is near, there's a big castle, and they dug out lots of ground to make this mound to put the castle on.
Mm-hmm.
And so these shops are at this level of the dip where they took all the soil out, so it's quite low.
Yeah.
And so I went on a trip and had an exploration of this street. So this story is based on that. It was the theme was Spooks, and it's about somebody going on a trip down into the weaver's room and then down further into that street, and they meet a ghost, a little girl ghost. And a weaver, there's a weaver who has been living in the weaver's room, and she's sort of the person who's gone on the journey, can see this little girl, but nobody else can. And the little girl needs some wool that she's lost, and she knows that it's in our time. She asks the person that goes down to find it.
Yeah.
And then this person moves through into their time and sees the weaving room, and so and yeah, it's just about their journey together. And
congratulations on that one. That was awesome.
I really enjoyed writing that, and it's the first thing that I ever really got published. I'm part of something called the Norwich Writers Circle, and they produce little books with all the stories that have won prizes in. So that's that one.
So that's good. Awesome. Well done.
Yeah.
And when you're not writing, the other thing you're interested in, and I noticed in there, is that you have a group called The Bridge, and you've been doing that over Zoom. Do you want to share a little bit about how that group came into being and what it's about?
Yeah, so that is a group for young adults between 18 and 30. And it came about because a friend of mine is a youth worker, and she noticed that in the UK, there's lots of support for young adults up to the age of 25. So say you've been in care, or you've had problems like anxiety or depression. There's lots of support. Maybe you've been homeless. There's lots of support there for people until you reach 25, and then suddenly it all stops, and you go into adult services, and maybe you lose contact with friends and lose contact with support that was really helpful, and funding and things like that. So she decided that she'd like to create a group which kind of bridged that gap, which is why we called it The Bridge.
Yeah, awesome.
And yeah, so we used to meet in the kind of cafe where my story is set, and meet in person before COVID, and now we meet on Zoom every Thursday. And it's a really friendly little social group, and on Zoom we have a theme that we discuss each week, and maybe we have a show and tell, so maybe we share our favorite music, and then we have a quiz, and we chat about issues. Like, so for instance, we had some workshops about self-esteem and relationships. That was great. Lovely guy called Jay who came and did us some workshops. We've done some storytelling workshops. So this guy Paul Jackson came along and told us some stories. So storytelling is bringing stories in the oral tradition rather than writing it down. It's hearing stories that have been passed down through the years and just telling them on. And so we did a couple of workshops on that. So yeah, I really enjoy doing it. Yeah, it's great.
Really feels a need. That's really awesome in that respect. So with your writing and what you've been doing, what do you think's been the biggest challenge for you to get your writing out there so people get to see it? How do people find you?
So I have a Facebook page called Elizabeth Perry, and writing for children. And I have a small blog called Cat's Tales on WordPress. And I'm still in the middle of really thinking about how I want to get my work out there, I think, as well. So I have had a couple of things published, but I am really thinking about how I can get my stories out there, whether I want to self-publish them or I want to try and get a publisher interested. So yeah, it's a journey at the moment. Yeah.
And that's great. And thank you for sharing that, because there'll be a lot of other people who are just starting writing, either it's stories or books or poetry. And what you've been sharing is going to be helpful for them to realize that they're not alone. There are other people out there, and you just have to keep trying little bits at a time and keep going.
Yeah, I think so. I think try and write as much as you can, and it doesn't really matter what it is in a way, just to keep going. And also I really appreciate being part of other groups who give me feedback and constructive criticism and read my work. That's really helpful. So get lots of people involved and supporting you. Yeah.
Having groups that you can run it by.
Yeah, I find that helpful.
Yeah, because you can't. You need that support. You need that, and it helps you when things maybe not working too well, or you're not sure what's going on. And that feedback is great. Just to let you know.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So where do you want to be? What do you want to be doing, Rachel? Where are you looking forward at the end of the year? What do you want to do? Have your books out there? Your stories out there?
Oh yeah, definitely. And that's what I'd love. And also I'd really like to I'd really like kids to interact with my stories. So whether they were published or not, I think I'd like to run some workshops where I maybe read my stories and kids did pictures with them. So that would be lovely. And that's potentially could happen at this community cafe.
Awesome.
Kind of cafe, because I've been doing some workshops with them on how to run sessions, Zoom sessions and things like that for groups. And they have a slot where people come along and try out different skills. And so I might potentially be able to run a session when we're allowed to have people together, then yeah, that might happen. So that would be, I think that would be my ultimate aim. Yes, publication and and also running small workshops with a few children. That would be lovely. I'd love to do that. And maybe alongside I met an artist who said she'd be interested, so we could work together on that. That would be really nice. Yeah.
For her to illustrate the story.
Yeah.
Just picture the vegan dragon and
the totally
clumsy night. That would be really very
good. Yeah.
Awesome. And I think that's a great option that you just shared for other people to think about. Is there's lots of ways to get your stories and to connect with people, and the public. You want to publish in that, but the running the workshop is an awesome alternative. Really great to look at that and to get going. Look at that, we've got the cat.
Yeah.
Artemis, I love the name Artemis. Awesome.
Yeah, it's the goddess of hunting.
Okay, so if people want to connect with you, Facebook would be the best place. They can, and I'll put the link below. They can,
Yeah, that's great.
especially
Yeah,
those who are thinking of writing children's stories.
I've used, so yeah, I used a different name. So I used my middle name, Elizabeth, and Curry was my mum's maiden name. So I thought, well, I'll use a different. So I'm Rachel, but I've decided, to use a different name as well.
And that's good too. But that gives an option for people like you who are just starting out, who've got might be interested in writing children's stories or interested in poetry, and that it's a good thing. People connect with Rachel, and it gives you another option to have a conversation with someone who's doing just like you, and you can bounce ideas off it. And I think, that's great. Thanks so much, Rachel. Thank you for being with us. I think it's a great conversation, and I think I'm looking forward to seeing more of your stories and hearing more of them.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that's really lovely to meet you. Thank you.
People, you've been watching Get Known, Be Seen WebTV, and we've been having an absolutely fascinating conversation with Rachel, all about children's stories and poetry. And I think there's a lot that Rachel has shared with us in this session, especially for those who are just starting out. You may not even be thinking, sure whether your writing and your stories are worth to publish, but do what Rachel's doing. Get a group of people around you, join some books associations, some writing groups, and get that feedback, because the more feedback you get, the better your stories are going to be. And those people will support you. And as Rachel has shared, that's the support that's been helping her to continue writing her awesome, quirky little stories for kids and her poetry. And also,
I think also that people, once you be brave and put it out there, and once you do, it's like a learning process. Once you put something out there, you learn something about yourself and the process. Yeah. So it's worth doing it. Yeah.
It's a win-win. You get feedback when you're learning about yourself and you're growing for yourself. Okay, thank you, people, for watching. For those who aren't aware, Get Known, Be Seen WebTV is available for guests like you who might want to get on to share your new book, your new business, things that you're doing. So if you've got something new like that, a book business message that you want to share with people, just contact me. My links are below, and you too can be a guest on the show, just like Rachel. It's also an opportunity for those who are experts in getting known, being seen, who may want to come on and share their strategies, their techniques, their plans and that for getting out there. So if you're an expert who would like to come on the show, again, just contact me in the links below, and I'd love to have you as a guest. I'm also available if you would like to have me to share my story, my expertise with you. I'm available to speak face-to-face or online summits, or if you'd like me to be a guest on your podcast show or your web TV show, we'd love to be able to come on and share my journey with you. And again, you can see the links below to connect with me of that. Meanwhile, below here is a button which says subscribe. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, because that means that you'll always be notified whenever there's a new guest on Get Known, Be Seen WebTV, and you'll always get notified, just like my guest Rachel. Awesome people who come on and share their stories, where they're going and their journey. Until next time, enjoy the show, and do contact Rachel and be in touch with her, especially if you're starting out with children's stories and poetry. You can find an awful lot of information between you, and together you can achieve more. Thank you so much, Rachel.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.